Okay, we're recording, so I'm going to go on mute and turn it over to you.
Hi, I'm Lord Ryan Savage. I'm here to give a class on the duties of Baronial Herald. That also is called a local herald, because it's not necessarily just baronies that have them. So you will also hear it referred to as local herald. So before we actually begin breaking down the duties, I kind of want to take a moment to talk about what a herald is. Because herald is often used as sort of like a catch-all to describe a variety of skills that are actually found in the SCA. So these are the types of heralds you'll find in the wild. There are voice heralds. They break down into sight heralds. These are the heralds that actually walk around at events making the announcements. Generally, you hear them on the hour, making announcements about what's coming up. Projection is your friend. When I first started, I know I tended to yell more than project, and if you do that, you're going to lose your voice real soon. There are court heralds. These are the heralds that are basically the voice of the noble, baron and baroness. You're basically, as the court herald, you're the master of ceremony. You're there to keep the agenda going. You're there to call people into court. You also will be reading off the award scrolls, just to name a few of the things that you do. Along with court heralds, there are also silent heralds, and these are actually heralds who do sign language services during court. So of course they will work along with the other herald up there signing. There are also list heralds. Basically, these heralds are responsible for calling off the pairings during both heavy and light fighting. Another thing that projection will be your friend. There are also book heralds. These are the heralds that fall into device heralds. These are the people who design the arms for people. There are also name heralds, who research and submit names for people. And there's also specialty categories in both of these. You'll find that you've also got heralds that specialize in certain time periods, possibly certain names, certain cultural names, or even cultural devices. Let's see. There are also administrative heralds. Some of the ones that you should know about are the Star Principal Herald. This is the head of the College of Heralds. Your regional herald, this would be the person that you're reporting into. It's also a person you can ask questions to. I know I relied on mine very heavily. The Zodiac herald. This person is the keeper of the OP. The OP is the order of precedence. This is any of the AOA awards, anything basically given out by the king and queen will be recorded here. So let's talk about some of the duties of a local herald. I will add with this that before I actually stepped up as the herald in Amron, I'd taken a couple classes, and I heard this is basically, as a local herald, you don't have to do everything to ensure it gets done. Take that to heart. With this job, there's a lot of burnout that comes with trying to do all the things with the heraldry. I was stubborn, and I was like, voice is my specialty, and I was like, I want to learn the book and everything. So it was very hard for me to try to do all the things. Luckily, I did have a deputy, very good at the device and name side of it, but I still insisted on trying to do it. So bear that in mind. You don't have to do it all. Having deputies is awesome. And if I can find my notes on duties, that would be awesome. All right, so your duties as a local Herald, Baronial Herald, quarterly reporting. This will be on any heraldic and even scribal happenings in your group. My suggestion to you would be to utilize your Google Drive. Whenever you step up, you should be giving a office email, an email for your office. And along with that, it will come with a Google Drive. That is awesome to just open up a Google Doc in there, write down a date, write down what heraldic thing happened. That way, when it comes time to your report, all you have to do is copy and paste. You got it right there. Another thing that you're in charge of is making sure that names, devices, and badges are getting submitted. And if that is not your specialty, doing the book side of things, it is possible to get help with Facebook. There's actually quite a few groups that you can utilize to try to help you if you don't have a deputy. One of them would be the Baby Heralds of the SCA Unofficial. Definitely suggest joining that group if you're new to being a herald, want to get started being a herald. They're really good for the book side of things. You can ask your questions there. Another one is the SCA Heraldry Unofficial Chat. That one's more sort of a serious group, so to say. When you get like a lot of passionate people, that would be more of the passionate group. More, so don't start with that one. Start with Herald, Baby Heralds. Go from there. In Onstiora, there is also another one, the Onstiora Heraldic Consultation Group. You can actually, what I did in the past, because we started getting way behind on stuff, is I would basically tell them, hey, if you get on this group, you can post up what you're looking for. There are people on there that would be more than happy to help get a design made. And then they can take that design, get it to you. You guys can work on getting it submitted. So those are some resources. So if, say, you don't have a deputy and you can make sure that gets done, you can use those. Those are awesome. So another thing that you're in charge of is providing voice heraldry for court and for populace meetings. Now, if say getting up in front of a bunch of people is not really your forte, you don't necessarily have to be the voice herald. You can talk to, let's say you are working for a baronial group. You can definitely talk to your nobles, let them know that that's not something that you're really comfortable with doing, and you guys can work on getting a deputy to do that. I stepped down back in January 2020 as the actual officer position. But then I stepped up as a deputy doing the voice stuff, doing court populace meetings. So it is definitely possible to have someone else do it other than you. That is what I like doing, the voice side of things. Now I will say on this next one, whenever your group does have an event, it is usually assumed that as the local herald, you're going to be the site herald in charge at the event. Again, if that's not really your forte, that means, to explain what that is, basically you're in charge of all the site heralds that go around and give the announcements. You'll be in charge of recruiting them, also making sure that they have a schedule to go by, and in general, making sure they're taken care of and that people know where to find them. That was kind of how I got started. I started doing site heraldry and did site heralds in charge a couple times before I stepped up to the local herald. Another thing that you're going to be in charge of is maintaining your group's OP, the order of precedence. This is going to be basically a list of your local group's awards. Whenever it comes time for your group's events, generally there is a call for awards. And we have seen in Namron, at least, people getting the same award twice, just because we didn't know they had the award. So you want to make sure that you get that recorded. In our case, we actually got the web minister to help create I believe it's a Google Sheets, which is basically Excel, but the Google version. And we've got the mundane name, SCA name, we've got the award. I've also got, if they knew it, we've got the event it was given at, the Baron and Baroness that gave it out, and what group they're with currently. So that is very awesome. You want to make sure that you're recording that. Speaking of recording, one of the other things that you're in charge of is making sure that court reports get submitted to the Zodiacus Herald, who's in charge of the OP. With that, you can actually get the court report, I believe, off the on Stewart page. They're under forms, and they recently updated it. It's a lot less confusing than it used to be, a lot more simple. Whenever you're doing a court, make sure you fill out both baronial and kingdom level awards that your nobles are giving out. Another thing to note on that is that the noble needs to sign it. So I definitely recommend, if you can, filling out the court report before court. That way you're not scrambling to get that done. And I speak from experience here. The very first event I did, I was not given this piece of advice. And so after court, I spent the next hour recalling and asking people what we had given out. And after that, then I had to go track down the Baron and Baroness to get them to sign it so I could send it in. So save yourself that headache. If you can, fill it in advance. Another thing that's is important, I would say, is recording the champions for the event. Generally speaking, you're usually going to be the only one there with pen and paper. So make sure that the champions for the event gets recorded. It may not seem like a big deal, but whenever the autocrat for the next year's event has to get a hold of the champions in order to get them to run the event, they're going to thank you. Another thing you're in charge of is the budget for your office. I think our budget was like $25. So that'll be, usually it's submitted once a year to the treasurer, what you need for your office. I think maybe like, may have submitted for like printer paper, but you can do things like heraldry books. Let's say you're into the names or the devices and you want to make sure you've got books for that for your office. You can submit for that so you can have that available for you so someone can physically hold something. There are also online resources for this. We'll get to that later. Another thing that you're responsible for, besides submitting names, devices, and badges, is actually checking on those submissions. Generally speaking, a name or device or even a badge takes about 9 months, I believe, is the approximate time for it to go in before it actually gets approved. So that is something you will need to keep track of. There is a tracker out there to try to help you with that. Or I also utilize the Google Drive, and I had folders for everything that we were submitting. But you will need to make sure you get on and check on that. So as far as resources, first thing you're going to want to know about is a website. It is heraldry.onstewara.org. This, of course, is specifically for the College of Heralds for Onstewara. That is where you're going to find a lot of stuff important to your job. That's where you're going to get your quarterly reporting as well. So you want to make sure that you actually have that bookmarked either on your laptop, home computer, phone, whatever it is you're going to be using to do your heraldry research. Definitely save that. Heraldry.sca.org is the second one. That one actually has a lot of resources for names and devices. The got a very awesome section on there that breaks down names by culture, and then further down by like different periods of time. Generally speaking, if you've got a client that is wanting to, start looking at a name, that is an awesome source to send them, figure out what culture they're looking for, find the appropriate URL, send that to them. Oscar. That is actually where you're going to be looking at those submissions that we talked about. It is Oscar, oscar.sca.org. You can also, there's also a part on there that gives you the like where your submission is in the process, and you can actually give that to your client so that they can go in there and also check on it too. I really believe in like educating. I don't want it to be like, yeah, this is some secret thing. It's like, here you go. This is the URL for your name. It'll tell you where at in the process you are. In order to get in there and actually look at the commentary for the device that you've submitted, you will need to request a login. So once you get appointed to the local Herald, I definitely suggest you get on there and request one, because it's not immediate. I believe they've got a certain number of logins they can give out. Also, I didn't learn about this until after I stepped down, but Kingdom of Onstiora does have an administrative handbook for the College of Heralds. The version I found was last updated 2018. Google that, download it, print it if you need to. It is going to break down the duties, much like I did. You do a look at what they expect of you. Also, the LOAR, which stands for Letters of Acceptances and Returns. Whenever you've got a device name badge, if it's been accepted, it's actually going to be put onto there. And the web address for that is heraldry.sca.org/LOAR. And if it's getting returned, it will also have notes on there so you can get with your client and try to figure out what you need to do next. Or if that's not your forte, get with another Herald that does specialize in that device name, whatever it may be. So talking about heraldry, or heralds in general. Like me trying to get started in this was I didn't know where to begin at all. I knew, I don't know, it was shortly after I got into the SCA, I was like, I kind of want to do this Herald thing, the voice heraldry. So some tips on getting started. Attend heraldry events. There are, usually once a year, there's a symposium for both heralds and scribes, and that is held for King of Onstiora. There's also a known world version as well, but that is very good. There's usually classes there. There are classes there, and they will get you. They'll give you a lot of information where to get started. I would also, if you're interested in the voice side of things, I would volunteer to Site Herald. That way you can kind of get used to that projecting. Used to being on the schedule as the court herald. That's one of the things. In a Site Herald, I'm always looking at the time, constantly having to keep track of the time in order to make sure I'm not late for anything. Another thing is the court. That sounds simple enough, but with being the court herald, you can put as much flair into it as you want, as much flair as your noble is comfortable with. I really enjoy watching the Golden Staff, which is the Kingdom Herald for their Majesties. There are quite a few of them that I've watched, and I'm just like, they bring a lot of flair to what they do, and eventually I hope to get to that level. I also have some pro tips for you. I mentioned that you don't have to do everything, and this job does have some burnout with it. That was another thing I was warned about. First thing I would suggest is set appointments if you're going to be doing consults. One of the things that we did early after me stepping up is I just did a big thing where we're like, hey, come on down, we'll get this stuff done. And I didn't know anything about names or devices really. So we did that. We got really behind. We had everybody there all at once. So if you're gonna do that, make appointments. Set them like an hour apart at least. Another thing for yourself, set office hours. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of stuff that you've got to check on. You will have people messaging you, asking you the status of their device at all hours of the day. So do yourself a favor, set office hours. Another thing from the court side is have extra court reports on hand. Generally speaking, I've got a folder that I keep all the forms in that I need, and that's one of them. Is make sure you've got that court report on hand, because a lot of times you don't have enough time before court to actually have your noble fill out the court report, and a lot of times it's on the fly. I can't tell you how many times I've had 15 minutes before court and we're going over what we're doing. Have a script with you. In the book for the Baronial office, I do have a script. I actually got this from Ivo Blackhawk very early in my court heraldry. I tried to find the website. Unfortunately, the bookmark's no longer there, but I think he moved it over into the book that he recently made. It's basically a big book of Herald stuff. It covers everything. But I would definitely have a script that even if you've said this a lot, have that with you, because you never know when you're going to draw a blank. Along with that script, you want to have your VVOTs. And on Stiora, at the end of closing court, we start with VVOTing at least the Namron, the Baron, the Baronova. Then you go to your cantons. In this case, it'd be Score Guard. We also have one that's not quite a canton yet, so we call it an outpost. Outpost of Oak Spring, and then VVOT Namron. And then you move on to Rex, so King, Regina, Queen. If there is a Prince and Princess, you will also include them in the VVOTs. If not, skip that. And then you VVOT on Stiora. You get real loud. Have that written down. I can't tell you how many times it just like froze. You got a lot going on, so do yourself a favor, have that as a script. Talk to your nobles. In on Stiora, it is in the court. We generally say, let's say we've got someone that just got an award. After they've received that award, you want to say something along the lines of, for the newest holder of the Torsad, VVOT. Crowd will say it back. There are different VVOTs depending on what you've got, and some groups prefer huzzahs for lesser awards. But talk with your noble. Whenever I was actively doing this for a different Baron and Baroness, they did not prefer huzzah, so I did not do it. Another pro tip is in Stiora, at least, I know there is no limit on deputies, so load up on deputies. That is actually a good way to make sure that you're handing off the office to somebody that knows that has been trained, knows what they're doing. I did the same thing when I was a marshal for Namron. I recruited a deputy, and I made two deputies, and I made sure both of them were trained. And that way I knew that once I stepped down, we had somebody in line that already had some training and would be able to take it over. From the court side of things, I would definitely recommend that you practice projection. Luckily for my job, I am the safety guy, and so I get to give their morning safety meetings. So I have a chance every day I go to work to practice projection. I definitely recommend you do that in your spare time. I also do that in the shower. There are good acoustics in there. Don't be ashamed to do that. I think that's all I have. I was hoping maybe we had some questions, but those are all the pro tips I could think of that I, from my own experience being the local herald, that I learned the hard way. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
Again, bookmark those websites as well. So.
No, that was awesome. Lots of really great advice for sure. I think having the scripts and, like you said, filling out the court report beforehand is definitely helpful. So
For
I
sure.
appreciate it. So I have a couple of quick questions for you.
All right.
What is your favorite part of being a local herald?
Well, doing court, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
That was my end goal when I first started doing the side heraldry stuff, because I kind of got my chops there. I learned the art of projection. Before that, I was yelling. It was bad. But that I like that. There's a whole sort of like drama thing that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
You're up there. You're in control of what's happening. You're leading your nobles along, and I just like the whole production of it,
Mm-hmm.
especially being up there. If you're up there with the Kingdom Herald and they're just doing an awesome job, and you're like, oh, this is amazing, because you can actually hear everything. The further back you said, the worse it is.
Right.
And I did forget to mention one thing. You, as the local herald, you become a confidant to the nobles. So basically, you know what awards are being given out, and you need to make sure you're not saying anything.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
So, I don't know.
Cool. What would you say, in your opinion, is the hardest part of being a local herald?
The thing I struggled with the most was the book side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Going in, like, we had so many submissions all the time, and like keeping track of them on Oscar. At the time, I didn't have a laptop, and the tracking program that someone had come up with didn't really work on my phone so well. So that honestly was the hardest thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Just keeping track of everything. So hopefully someone else, that comes along will be a lot more organized than that. So
It is a lot to keep up with, though. Absolutely.
sure.
And then let's see. Oh, what would you tell someone who is interested in becoming a local herald for their group?
Well, I would tell them to attend Roundtable if they can. I think I did forget to mention that you need to be warranted in order to do the local herald thing. And when you go through the warranting, a lot of that is breaking down like what they expect of you. And your warranting actually lasts for 2 years. So it's actually good if you know that that's the path you're going to take.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and go to a roundtable before your current herald steps down. Get warranted. And that way, whenever you do need to step up, let's say you can't make it to roundtable, you're at least covered for that, that 2 years from the time that you got it. Because otherwise, if you're not warranted and you step up, I believe you have 3 months from the date you step up in order to actually get that warranting done.
Right.
Otherwise, I would tell them to volunteer. Volunteer to help with any sort of heraldic things, consultation tables if they're interested in the book side, side herald, being a side herald if they're interested in the voice side.
Cool. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and teach and share your knowledge, and I'm sure others will as well, and we'll watch the video once I get that posted tomorrow. So,
Awesome.
All
Well, thank you
right.
for having me. I'm glad I could kind of share some of what I learned doing it. So
Definitely. All right. Well, you have a good rest of your night. Talk to you later.
thank you. All right.
Bye.